Ray Hanania, man, you look good. How's it going?
I'm doing really well, Mark. How are you, buddy? Thank you for inviting me on your show, man.
No, no, thank you. Ray Hanania, do you have any predictions, psychic predictions for 2026?
Well, yeah, the Democrats are going to take over the House and maybe even the Senate because the bottom line President Trump is an enigma. On one side, he has some interesting uh, programs and ideas, and on the other side, he just can't stop himself from being a jerk. You don't attack women and you don't call them, misogyny is never a good thing in politics, right? You don't call a woman piggy. You don't berate a woman at a press conference. These are like basic things that undermine a lot of credibility. And the worst thing is he's not good at math. I don't know if you watched his speech this week when he said that he was saving the American people money for medical prescriptions. Are you aware of that?
It was like
And then
400%, 400%, something ridiculous, right?
yeah, yes, he said 400%, 500%, 600%. But if you know anything about math, you can't reduce something more than 100%.
Well,
It
I'm not
it
much of
goes
a
at
tech.
if something costs $100 and you wanna cut it down to 0, that's 100% reduction. If you cut it down to 600%, it goes down to negative $600.
But Ray
So,
Hanania,
in other
he's
words.
not talking to you and I. He's talking to the crazy people. You know how it works.
He's just talking off the top of his head, like, and then changing the Kennedy Center to include the Donald J. Trump and John F. Kennedy Center, putting his name on it,
Wait, wait, wait,
giving
wait, wait,
himself.
wait, Ray. You don't have the Ray Hanania Center for Performing Arts for
No, yeah.
performing
Listen, the first thing
arts?
I would do if I'm elected by the people is put my name on the Empire State Building. Okay, and rename New York City the Ray Hanania City, and the big Route 30, the Ray Hanania Route 30.
Of
The
course.
last thing you do when you're a good public official is you're a little humble, right? You don't start putting your name every place because you want gratuitous applause.
Well,
That's
Ray,
what he's trying to do.
are you predicting recession in the United States, a global recession? Are you predicting peace in the Middle East in 2026?
No, no, you know what? The problem with the Middle East is it's always a one-sided thing, and I know there's a big debate about this, but people complain about anti-Semitism, and anti-Semitism is horrible. By the way, happy Hanukkah to everybody who is Jewish celebrating their holiday. But Islamophobia, and I'm a Christian Arab, Islamophobia is huge, and nobody's really doing anything about it. So it seems like you hear our elected officials say, we're going to pass laws to punish people who engage in anti Semitism. Why don't we pass a law that punishes everybody who engages in anti Semitism, Islamophobia, racism against blacks, racism against Asians? Why don't we have one law against bigotry and racism and discrimination? Why do we have to have these individual laws that target certain things that makes them more important than others? It causes tension. I think that's a big problem in our society.
See, I don't hear the Islamophobia. I just heard a lot because on the stuff I look at, the algorithms send me stuff, so they don't send me a Islamophobia.
Right.
You know,
I
but the Zion Mandami race or running for mayor of New York, when I see the New York stories, I hear how bad it was in New York City during the election.
Yes. Well, it's bad all over the country, but
Oh,
the media doesn't report on it.
okay.
When we're looking at this podcast, your podcast, we're looking at two people who don't represent the faces of people in the news media. You're African American, I'm Arab American. Our faces are barely seen in the media. And it's like a club. I was in the media. I covered City Hall 20 years. In this, granted, that the 80s and 90s, and then I've been covering politics ever since. But when I was there, I was like the only Palestinian in the entire journalism profession working at a full time major city beat. And there were like 10,000 reporters. You can imagine how coverage is slanted. And now there were more African Americans. They've really made some headway, and they have the National Association of Black Journalists, obviously. But there are stories about us that we have to fight to get in. It's a little easier to get a story about an African American in. It's very hard to get a story about an Arab American in. There are only like 20 reporters in the whole country, that and unfortunately a lot of them only focus on politics and are more perspective. I'm a columnist now. I'm not so much a journalist. I'm more of a columnist.
But Ray, you're really talking about the legacy media, correct?
No, I'm talking about today's media that
And that's what I'm saying. What is today's media?
today's media is anybody that opens up their computer and can connect to Facebook and they like that, they have an opinion. When I was a kid, I used to watch Marcus Welby, MD
Ooh,
on TV,
that was
right?
a long time ago.
Yes, it was. It was a long time ago, but I watched every episode, 142 episodes. I am now a surgeon because I watched him on TV. I can open up a heart. I saw how easy it was. It was simple. It was on TV. That's the attitude that we have in journalism today. Everybody that has a computer that can and a Facebook page, they're reporting on what's happening around them, but it's missing the professional journalism aspect, stuff that you and I have. And I'm
No,
not
please,
knocking them.
don't include me. You're a real journalist. Keep going.
Well, still,
But I know
but
what you mean.
you
Keep going.
this is your profession. This is your profession.
Right,
These other
right.
people, they work in grocery stores, they work at movie theaters, they work in business things, and they just go, "Hey, I have an opinion. I'll put it on Twitter. I'll put it on social media, and you better listen to me." And that you get in fights with people. Nobody wants to hear facts anymore. They just want to spew their opinions.
Yeah, and I understand it, but I think like most of us don't take. I took a little media class at public access many years ago, and it did open my eyes up because most people don't take a media class unless they watch something on the computer. Understanding how the media works, who's who, what's in the whole game, and Edward Bernays and the whole nine. You know what I'm saying? I know that's not media; he's
Well,
a relations, but you
well,
know what I'm
you're
saying.
different. I'm going to tell you why you're different. You're different because you're actually trying to get stories and facts out of people. You're interviewing me. The difference between you and other people is, and you're doing this across the board with all kinds of topics. The difference between you, me, and other people who are on social media is the people on social media aren't asking for facts. They see something and they present what they believe are the facts, and it's not their profession. But if you disagree with them, it turns into a hate-driven conflict, and that's why our country is so polarized today. I really think social media has empowered people to take over journalism and media and caused a dysfunctional conflict in our community that is hurting us.
Well,
Nobody respects journalism.
I understand because you're a real journalist. Now, Nick Fuentes is from suburban Chicago, not too
Right,
far from you and I, where we are right now. And so, would you have Nick Fuentes? And people who don't know who he is, look at me or Nick Fuentes.
right.
You have him on your show. You got a show. Would you have him on?
Yeah, listen, I would have anybody on a show, but you got to keep in mind that one of the problems with inviting, like I'm a conservative Democrat. That's how I view myself as a conservative Democrat. Sometimes now they won't. Somebody like Fuentes, who's a very hard right, conservative, he may think that I'm, a terrible person, and he won't talk to me even if I wanted to interview him. But I got to be honest with you. I try not, people that are on the far right or the far left, I don't want to interview them, and help platform their views because they're so crazy on the two sides. What I do want to do is if there's a controversy, I want to get his side of the story and say, "Hey, what's going on with this organization that you're involved in? There's an internal fight. They're fighting, with Tucker Carlson and a bunch of other people. The right is dividing itself. You see that every day. Now, I like many of the things that Tucker Carlson says about the Middle East. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Colorado. I love what she says about the Middle East. She's a
Colorado. Wait.
she's a congresswoman from I
Yeah,
think right or no,
I,
Georgia. I
yeah, Georgia.
apologize.
I get. What's
Yeah,
the
I'm
lady?
sorry.
Wait. What's the lady from Colorado was in the theater with a boyfriend? That's Loma or something? What I see, I don't keep up
Loomer,
with
oh, yeah,
yeah,
Loomer, she's
I get 'em
kinda
I
crazy.
get 'em all
She's
mixed up like
nuts.
most people. Now, who would you like to interview on your video chat show on the Internet? Who would you like to interview?
I'd love to interview President Trump. I'd like to ask him, and not be afraid, and I think he would take the questions. He'd probably, if I asked a question he didn't like, he'd say, "Well, you're a stupid Arab. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a failed journalist." But I would expect that from him because that's his style. But I'd love to interview him because I'd love to say, "What are you doing? You have great ideas. Why do you put these controversies in front of your great ideas, and block and pander to the emotions of the public rather than present your great ideas and let people on both sides understand him and support?" He doesn't give his own ideas a chance.
And how do we well, what about I was watching on a video this morning. I was watching Frank Luntz, a great, web he post or whatever he does, right? Word manipulator, or whatever the term. He's pretty good. Would you have Frank Luntz on your show?
I don't know enough about him.
When I
I'd
say
have
that,
to look at him.
but you know of him, but and people at home who watch this type of show, we know who he is. But what I'm trying to say, will we ever have like I know C-SPAN has a show. You have common people. I mean, different people was trying to reach some common ground. Will we ever have some common ground in politics instead of this
Well,
crazy?
we used to. We
We
used to. We
used to.
don't
Will we ever
anymore.
have it again? Will we ever have it
We
again?
don't. We don't because
Well, how do
the
we get there, Ray?
well, you got to elect leaders who are willing to risk. Now, Zoran Memdami, in my opinion, is one of those people that cut through the BS between the Democrats and the Republicans, and everybody said, "Oh, he's only got 2%." There's no way this socialist, they call them. Now, to me, a democratic socialist in the U.S. is somebody who cares about the interests of the poor and the needy, and everybody and the middle class to make sure that they have the same opportunities. Healthcare is there. That's not the same as the socialist label they throw at him. But they've been attacking him, and they completely wrote him off. They said, "Oh, he's a socialist. Nobody's going to elect him." And what happened? He beat both of the candidates that were against him, and he still got a margin of victory. It was a landslide victory for him. And yet, the Democrats couldn't even accept the reality, which shows how bad the Democratic Party is, that they had to run Cuomo again as an independent because they were so shocked that Zoran Memdami won with such a big margin. And why did he win? Because he said what the people need. He talked about their needs. And that's what the Democrats and Republicans are not doing, that they need to start doing.
Well,
That's how we get past this.
so Ray, let's end this little podcast talking about the establishment. You have the Democratic establishment, the Wall Street Journal, the Republican establishment, the Trump establishment. The
Right.
establishment is the establishment. So people on the outside or commoners like yours truly, how do we make an impact on the establishment
Well, I mean,
or the
listen,
established way of doing things, or whatever? You know what I'm saying?
we elect people who are good. It's not, it starts from the grassroots. But when I talk about this polarization, it's at a national level. It's not always like that on the local level. We do have some controversies on the local level. We got right left fighting and right left grabbing the national issues to try to win election. But for the most part, you get local government officials. They slate candidates. There are people running for Congress, like this Joey Roosevelt, who's running against Congressman Sean Casten. Casten is a Democrat. He's not a bad guy. He's a nice guy, but he's disconnected from the district. He's only connected to that part of the district that agrees with him. And there's a huge vacuum that I think would undermine him. And I think this Roosevelt is talking about it, appealing to that vote. That's how you change the national problem that we have with polarization. You change it at the local level. But that's 435 congressional seats and 100 Senate seats. That's not easy to do.
That's not easy. Hey, Ray
It takes
Hanania,
a good leader at the top.
thanks for doing this show. Will you come back sometime soon? At least sometime once in
I
2026.
I would love to anytime. And, you could always reach me on my website at hanania.com. I'm the U.S. Special Correspondent for Arab News newspaper in the Middle East, and I write for a bunch of newspapers in Chicagoland at the Southwest Regional News Group. So I love journalism.
Hey, Ray Hanania, thank you. And thank you at home for watching the show. Subscribe, like, and we'll see you soon.